What's up, buttercups? Hopefully you're wearing your mean jeans. Rest in peace, Hulk Hogan. Of course, known racist Hulk Hogan, as the left would like to portray the man. Anyway, welcome to the show, guys. We are going to talk about several topics today that involve racism. Well, at least racism adjacent, accusations of racism, accusations of xenophobia, accusations of genetic manipulation, you name it, we're going to talk about it. But we're also going to talk about some politics. We're also going to talk about the endless parade of Hollywood DEI nonsense, and these people just can't seem to get out of their own way. And something that I bet most of you do not know about, which is that there's an organization called Collective Shout, and this is an organization that purports to be a feminist organization that is actively censoring games across the spectrum, video games, that is. So all that and more on today's show. If you don't mind, guys, please subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the Lions of Liberty Network podcast wherever you listen, and also give us a 5-star review. It does help. We really appreciate it. And if you want to give more, patreon.com/Lions of Liberty. I actually just did a South Park episode 1 review of the episode in which liberals were saying that MAGA were losing their minds over. I give you my thoughts, whether it was good, whether it was bad, and whether that assessment was warranted or not. So all that and more, patreon.com/Lions of Liberty or lionsofliberty.locals.com. All right, let's get into it. First things first, I feel I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the fact that Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, has in fact gotten himself an unbelievable victory. And that comes in the way of the meeting he just had with, who's it, Ursula von der Lederhosen, whatever her name is, the goblin that currently runs the EU. He met with her. She essentially, on live television, admitted the fact that the European Union has been taking advantage of America and American trade for quite some time, that we do pay for a lot, if not all, of their defenses, and that they were now willing to capitulate to Donald Trump's demands, essentially saying that the import and the tariffs on European goods would be 15%, right? And that the tariff on United States goods would be 0. Now, this goes against everything I have ever thought about tariffs, right? We were told, we had read, and we had seen in the past that tariffs typically are reciprocal, right? You raise your tariffs, they're going to raise their tariffs. It's an endless cycle ending in the citizens of a nation essentially taking it on the chin so that certain industries could be propped up, right? And what I mean by that, of course, is that when you're talking about tariffs, the tariffs are not universal across everything for the most part. Typically, they're a little higher for one sector, they're lower for other sectors. There's exemptions that are made for, let's say, automotive or chip manufacturing. And by the way, in this tariff deal, there are exceptions made for things like, I believe, automotive, and I believe for sure, I actually know for a fact, semiconductors. So for us importing Europe's semiconductors, because we need semiconductors, everything is now running on them, there's no tariffs on that. So it's a little bit more nuanced than what you read in the newspapers, just saying it's a blanket 15 or 30%. That being said, as I mentioned, it's a protectionist racket for the most part, because a lot of times, as you'll see with like tariffs on steel or lumber or automotive, it's to protect industries here that may or may not warrant protection. And I know that sounds cruel to say, but there exists factions that lobby the government because they want to protect their industries, because they believe it's vital for American interests. And most of the time, it's not. Most of the time, these are industries that need to go by the wayside, that they're not profitable, they're not competitive, they're built up and held down really by unions that cost vastly more than the labor of other nations. That being said, what's happened with this situation looks to be an absolute victory. And honestly, for any of us that are being intellectually honest, makes you have to rethink what tariffs do, how they're applied, and the victory that Donald Trump has gotten here. Because as I said from the get-go, I'm more than willing to admit when I'm wrong about something like this. And I said from the get-go, the tariffs and the way Donald Trump has used them, especially his tactics of having these exceptionally high tariffs placed on, let's say, China or European Union, I think the European Union tariffs went as high as 50% at one point. He's using them as a cudgel, but clearly, and if you know how Donald Trump negotiates, he will do this. It's going in, using the heavy hand, and then pulling back. He does this rhetorically as well as economically, as we've seen. And it has been effective. I mean, it's almost impossible to argue otherwise. Yeah, I could say that I'd like the trade with China to be a little bit more, the tariff to be a little lower, but primarily because I'm trying to import something from China. But at the end of the day, the European Union deal here cannot be argued with, that it is an absolute win for America. The only downside of the deal is that if, like me, you're very concerned with NATO, you're concerned with the spending that the United States does put forth to cover all the defensive aspects for many of these European nations and the EU at large, well, it's a loss in that regard. But taken in the broader context of before, we were getting effed in the A by paying for all of their funding. And I guess, at this point, Donald Trump has managed to get them to commit to covering at least, I think, something like 25%, where they used to cover 2%. If you look at it as we were getting reamed from both sides, they were Eiffel Towering us basically in the bedroom with tariffs as well as the spending on their defensive side of things. Well, Jesus. I mean, I have to say I was wrong. If you can utilize tariffs in this way, if you can beat people down and get something that's more of a fair shake, and at the same time, essentially say, they admitted it. And she came out here during this meeting and said, we have been taking advantage of the United States here. And the other aspect of this, too, is that Donald Trump, I think, is a little less tactful than former presidents and a little more willing to say, look, we're not going to fund your defenses anymore. We're going to leave you out to dry if you don't start working with this economically. And more power to him. I mean, if we're going to be spending that money, you better get something for it. And you better get our goods imported at zero tariffs. And you better open up that marketplace. And it also comes at a time, too, and this is an interesting thing I talked about in my Good Morning Fuckhead rants today. The energy aspect of this is interesting as well. Because part of this deal was also that Europe would be importing something like, I think, 700, actually, it might be over $1 trillion. It might be, and again, I apologize, I don't have this right in front of me. It was something like 1.4 trillion of, that's either investment into the Americas, or they had something like $750 billion that they have committed to buying American energy. So that aspect is also interesting. Number one, because, okay, now the United States, instead of being an importer of energy, is now an exporter. But also, when you look at the implications of this for the Russia-Ukraine conflict, if Europe is committed now to importing energy for the United States, that might pressure Putin, on top of Donald Trump shortening this negotiating window for a ceasefire and peace talks between Ukraine and Russia. Russia's main export was natural gas and energy. And Europe had been cut off from that during this entire affair. If Donald Trump is now saying, well, guess what, Putin? We're supplying Europe with all of our American energy. Putin's now going to say, by the time this war does end, if I don't end this quickly, if I don't get to the table and negotiate an end to this so I can start getting my oil and my gas exports out to Europe again before the American energy starts taking over everything, well, I might be shut out for good. And I think that's a potent aspect of this that may not be getting spoken about enough. So, credit where credit's due, guys. There's a lot of things that Donald Trump has done in recent months that have really pissed me off. But this one is a absolute win. And you just got to give it to him. And you got to admit when you're wrong, and you have to take the data as it comes in. When it comes to tariffs and this negotiating tactic, he has seemed to have, escaped the trap of history and ended the cycle of endless reciprocal tariffs between nations. So, goddamn, I did not think I would be here saying that, but yet I am happy that I am. Okay. Next thing is the Sydney Sweeney thing. My God. I'm just going to play you guys a couple of videos. I know you've probably seen them, but I'd feel remiss in my duties here as a host of this show if I didn't show at least a couple of these. I pulled up two specifically. And the reason I've chosen these two, it's because these people are outwardly saying, hey, this is my career, and yet still going full TDS, imbecilic nonsense, losing their minds in a professional capacity here. So it's not only putting yourself out there as an idiot with a very ill-formed, completely untethered from reality take on the Sydney Sweeney jeans ad, which we'll talk about after this. But you're also putting it in a context of you're a professional. So people are going to see this and say, why would I want to go to this person if they're so unhinged and hate me? Or if I like this ad, hate me so much they want nothing to do with me. So here's the first one.
Not only xenophobic and racist, it's also scientifically inaccurate. She says genes often determine hair color and eye color. I'm sorry, often? That's literally what they do. If they're not determining hair color and eye color, what is? It's giving red pill podcast bro with no marketing experience clearly running their ad department. And I just hate when companies make content trying to use medical or scientific terms and then completely fuck it up. Like, it's not that hard to Google what genes do, how DNA works. Do genes often determine our traits, or do they always determine our traits?
Actually, this woman is the lady. They know what genes do. The only reason, no. Imagine getting that upset about this ad in general, right? That this is, oh my God, I can't believe these. They gave a podcast bro their ad budget who doesn't know anything about marketing. First off, lady surgeon, if you're just listening, this is a lady surgeon, I guess. First off, clearly the people that have done the marketing knew exactly what they were doing, because the American Eagle stock has gone up something like 15 to 20% since this ad came out. I can guarantee you that women actually do want to look and dress like Sydney Sweeney, that they do find her attractive. And I'll give you an example of this. Victoria's Secret lost $5 billion doing the kind of marketing that you want, which is putting the ugliest up there first, all diversity all the time. We're not going to put anybody that's beautiful because that could make people feel bad. We want women to feel good about their bodies. So we're going to put ugly bodies out there wearing ugly clothing. Guess what? Doesn't work. Does not work. Advertising needs to be inspirational, emotional, or has some sort of hook that makes people want to go buy the product because they guess and they think that that product is going to make them feel better or look better or be better or appear better in some way. That's why this type of advertising works. And not only that, but it also appeals to men who might want to go and say, well, yeah, you know what? I haven't thought about American Eagle in a while, but they do have men's clothes too. Maybe I'll go check it out. Maybe I'll see more Sydney Sweeney ads. Maybe hot chicks will now go to American Eagle and I can go meet them because they're buying the Sydney Sweeney ads or jeans. There's a lot of aspects of this. And you add on top of that the fact that you're talking about it. That's what these people don't understand. You can tell somebody that doesn't understand marketing because half of the reason they did this ad is just like when Carl's Jr. put Paris Hilton on top of a car eating a cheeseburger. I'm sure many of you remember that. For those of you that are young and maybe you were 10 when this ad came out, they put Paris Hilton at the height of her hotness and very, very televised retardation. Although I've met Paris Hilton in person a couple of times. She's actually very smart, and also gorgeous. I'll say that. They put her on top of a car eating a cheeseburger, and that was it. And guess what? Feminists got all pissed off, the more radicalized feminists anyway. And Carl's Jr. saw a big uptick in sales of burgers. Is Paris Hilton going to be serving me my burger? No. Is Sydney Sweeney going to be there in person selling me jeans? No. But guess what? Everybody was talking about the commercial. It put the brand front and center. American Eagle has not been front and center for a long time. It is a brand that hit its peak in the 90s and now has been sitting in malls rotting until this ad came out. But this moron wants you to think that a podcast bro came up with this idea. Now, second thing here, the actually aspect of this, of course they know what genes are. We all know what genes do and what they are, you fucking idiot. That's why the pun caused so many people to get angry and call her a Nazi. Which, by the way, if you're Sydney Sweeney, you're like, I just made a jeans commercial. And somebody had tweeted this out and I agree with it. Is Sydney Sweeney wasn't If Sydney Sweeney was a liberal before this, she's not anymore, right? It doesn't take much for the psycho mob here. But for this, whatever, lady doctor, lady, whatever she is, to make this video, and her lead point is, I get so upset as a scientist when they say that genes often lead to the hair color and the eye color. Oh my God, who doesn't know how to research? Lady, we know what the term means. The only reason they didn't explicitly say genes dictate this is because then you people would have lost your minds even more. So this woman's actually complaining about the fact that the commercial writers tried to soften it just a little bit to avoid this exact kind of idiotic response. And this chick is just still out there leaning into it as hard as she can. And by the way, not coming across as a very intelligent person. If this was my doctor, I can tell you I would change my doctor having seen this video. So let's play another one, shall we? Hopefully it queues up a little faster. The last time it took about 5 minutes to get on the screen. I thought it wasn't working. All right, here's another one. This is a woman who is you will not believe this when you see her, a Pilates instructor. All right, take forever, StreamYard. Let's go. Get it on the screen, please. All right. So here's this lady. Let me make this big so you can really get the full experience of seeing this broad.
If anyone from American Eagle who was involved in the creation of Sydney Sweeney's most recent advertisement booked into my Pilates class, I would give them the hardest exercise class that I was capable of doing on the lightest possible spring load with 0 breath cues. And I would make it the toughest exercise class that they'd ever experienced in their lives.
Okay. So that was a Pilates instructor who, by the way, looks like she was made out of mashed potatoes. Some of these people, I honestly, it blows my mind. This one's a Pilates instructor. She was one of the least fit, at least from a head. All we saw in the video was a head and curly hair. She looked like she might have been a little bit slow and 100% out of shape. And yet she's out there threatening people who, and again, I'm sure that people involved, are you going to ask everybody that walks into your Pilates studio, excuse me, were you involved with the Sydney Sweeney ad? Because if you were, I'm going to make sure you get the hardest thing of your life. God, these people, their brains are mush. So, potato face mush woman here going on and threatening people in a professional capacity because they like an ad or involved with an ad is so unhinged that it makes no sense you would put yourself out there. I mean, what do you think's going to happen with this? Do you think people are going to be like, good, go get them, girl. You showed those Nazis. I mean, for fuck's sake, it's a commercial showcasing a hot chick wearing jeans, making a good jeans joke. And your response is to lose your mind and start calling everybody Nazis. What do you think the fallout's going to be? I mean, are people going to listen to you as a rational person? Are they going to think, wow, what an insightful opinion. Wow, they really cut to the heart of this matter. We need to look into this hot lady trend in commercials. And are all commercials trying to teach us eugenics? I mean, what the fuck are they talking about? No one is going to take you seriously. It's another example of these far left activists picking the dumbest hills to die on. And the media can't resist this. Look, I sent a pitch out. I'm a publicist. I sent a pitch out for an advertising agency client of mine that does retail ads saying, hey, let's comment about it. These people are calling Sydney Sweeney a Nazi. Talk to my client. They'll tell you what's up with that. Why is the brand not talking? And the brand was smart not to talk. American Eagle hasn't said anything, nor should they, because if you give these people an inch, they'll take a mile. And American Eagle knows that. So let it play out. These people are making themselves look stupid. Why do we need to get involved in that? We don't need to apologize. If we do apologize, what's the next thing? And that's what my client said. If they open up themselves to commenting about this, well, then what's the next question that's going to follow that? Why did you make that ad? Why did you think it was okay to talk about jeans? Are you racist? Are you white supremacist? No, you don't open yourselves up for those questions. You just let it sit there, and you let these blue-haired psychopaths and Pilates instructors and scientists make themselves look like the psychopaths they are. And in the meantime, the ad goes viral. It blows up. Everyone's talking about it. These people are self-defeating. If you hated it that much, you should have just shut the fuck up about it. But they can't. They can't. It's the same reason Donald Trump gained in popularity throughout this entire cycle, because these people can't get out of their own way. They don't understand. So God bless you, Sydney Sweeney. Thank you for a fantastic ad. Thank you for advertisements again that showcase good-looking people. I hope to God by Target, which is the denizens of Target, the denizens of the billboards of Target, they find people that do not exist. I swear to God, Target breeds the ugliest models they can find in a laboratory, in a basement somewhere, in a bunker on a Native American reservation. They breed the ugliest people in the world to put on the billboards in their stores. Please, Target. No more. Free them. Free the freeze. Throw open the doors. You can see the ugliest parade of people fleeing a bunker in the desert as Target flings the doors open. Okay, next topic. We talked about Nazi jeans. So a couple things in Hollywood, right? And then we'll finish up with this insane story about this gaming censorship. So there's two new reboots, right? Because Hollywood can't stop making reboots. Now, these are television reboots. One is in the Star Trek franchise, and Star Trek, if you've been following along, because Star Trek is near and dear to me, just like Star Wars was. You know, it's funny. I used to be a bigger Star Wars fan, and as I got older, I became more of a Star Trek fan, especially watching the original Star Treks and then Next Generation, Deep Space Nine. There was a lot of really good Star Treks. Then they got really shitty, right? Picard kind of brought it back. Mostly really shitty because woke, bad writing, DEI nonsense, horrible writers' rooms where they're checking boxes rather than actually hiring people that know what they're doing or have talent. Just became garbage. The latest iteration of that is called Starfleet Academy. And if you're wondering if it was run by if the show writer is a woke woman, well, yes, of course, you nailed it. It is a woke female showrunner. And the showrunner is a person who writes all the initial episodes and is essentially guiding the ship along where the show is supposed to go. If you're wondering if there are combinations of ethnic and alien races that make no sense and buck the entire, concept of shows that have laid before them, the entire genesis of races, well, yes, they did that in the, on the altar of diversity. And if you're wondering if, of course, they cast a female star lead as the captain of the ship, which is like the fourth one they've cast lately. Yes, you're also correct. And what breaks my heart is that they cast the show. And then there's one thing that everybody's making fun of, and rightly so, is there's a character called, there's a species in Star Trek called the Jem'Hadar, which are all male, bred in tubes just to take part in combat. And somehow there's a female half Klingon Jem'Hadar Star Trek member now. It just makes no sense. And she's very fat. It just makes no sense. But what really breaks my heart here is that the lead of the show, the captain of this whatever Starfleet Academy, they're returning to the Starfleet Academy. They got a ship that's going to go out so they can take adventures and you can watch, whiny people that have no experience in space go and I don't know, finger bang each other in the turbo lifts. Holly Hunter is the captain. Now, this is heartbreaking for me because I actually really like Holly Hunter. I've been a huge fan of hers as an actress for a long time. I think she's been great in almost everything I've seen her in, including the Thanksgiving classic Home for the Holidays, which is very funny, and I recommend everybody watch. It's got a very young Robert Downey Jr. in it, being awesome. And a not Dylan Mulvaney. What was it? Dylan Mulvaney. Derek Mulroney? No, not Derek Mulroney. He's not in it. Anyway, it's got a good cast. Just check it out. Steve Guttenberg, the Goot's in it. She was in a great movie called Crash. Holly Hunter, man. I love Holly Hunter. Well, they got her out of mothballs because she's old as shit. And she's out there as the Starship captain and whatever, I guess the Fleet Admiral or the Starship Academy Admiral, whatever the fuck it is. And it just isn't working. It's bad casting. She does not give off an aura of authority here. She's so old, and honestly, because of the speech impediment she had from, I guess, an incident when she was a young girl, she's unbelievably hard to understand. She's so old. It's kind of like listening to to the dude now, you know, and everything he's in. We're just talk like this here, Jim, or Sylvester Stallone in recent years. But she's very hard to understand. On top of that, she's 4 feet tall. I mean, Holly Hunter is fucking tiny. She is a teeny weeny individual. And in some of these trailers you're watching for the show, not only are you just shaking your head at the stupid casting and the alien combos and big fat black Jem Hadar ladies, but you're also shaking your head because Holly Hunter's sitting in the chair, the captain's chair, and it looks like a kid sitting in Santa's chair when Santa's gone for a smoke break. It's embarrassingly bizarre. It honestly begs the question, why did they make the chair so big when she's so small? Make a smaller chair that Holly Hunter doesn't look ridiculous in, like she's sitting in, you know, like a little kid driving the car in the front seat in her dad's lap. Like, it's absurdly terrible. And this show is going to fail miserably. And Paramount keeps rolling out this kind of shit. They keep rolling out failed show after show after show. They just canceled one, which had a black female ship captain, which I tried to watch. Again, I have nothing wrong with, you know, I watched Captain Janeway on Star Trek Voyager. I thought she did a great job, but she was a strong embodiment of the character. It was a well-written show, well put together, had interesting characters. Great. What they've done lately is they ditched the hard writing in exchange for these bullshit plot lines that lean into woke culture, woke topics, forced casting. And as I mentioned, bad writing, because the writers' rooms are now populated, basically forced population of, you know, a lot of female writers, a lot of diverse writers, where a lot of your sci-fi writers of the past were, I'm sorry, straight white men, or at least straight men. And that just was what it was. So if you then try to force in all these other, you know, voices from here, there, and everywhere, you're going to get a fall down in your quality. It's just what's going to happen. I've talked about this before. Anytime you force a quota into there, you're going to get a big fall off in your talent. And that's just based on statistics, if nothing else, because you think about the statistics of how many white males there are in America and how many of those white males in America are writers, which, you know, the vast majority. Well, if you're eliminating those people from those jobs, what do you think is going to happen? You're now taking a tiny fraction of a tiny fraction of a tiny fraction and shoehorning into these jobs, and it's just not going to work. So they recently canceled, like this black female ship captain. Again, I tried to watch it. It was just awful. Just fucking awful. And I even tried to watch one, which I think they've renewed, which is called, you know, Brave New Worlds or Strange New Worlds or something like that. And even that I tried watching. It's hard to watch, mostly because the writing has leaned into so much more of this melodramatic nonsense. And I know where to point the finger for that in the writing room, but just it's hard to watch them. So that's one thing that they're trying to reboot. It's going to be shit. The other one, it's even more absurd, is Spartacus. Now, Spartacus, I never watched. I heard it's a very good show, the initial show anyway, which I think was on Stars. Gladiator show, right? I am Spartacus, about a big, tough, brawny man. He's fighting another big, tough, brawny man. He's slicing them open. He's pulling their intestines out, waving them around, doing jump ropes with them. So at the end of Spartacus, the lead actor in Spartacus, or the lead character of Spartacus, or I guess his name's Asher, dies. He gets his fucking head chopped off. So what does Hollywood do? Well, in classic Hollywood fashion, they go, yeah, never mind. We're going to relaunch this show and call it House of Asher, where he doesn't die. Now I guess he's got his own gladiator house. And there's a brand new gladiator that's tearing everybody up, that's kicking ass and jump roping with intestines again. I'll give everybody out there one guess. One guess. What do you think this gladiator's makeup is as far as sex and skin color? Okay, you got it? Picture in your mind? Yes, exactly. It's a black female. Because of course it is. Because that makes complete and total sense. Is she fighting other female gladiators, you might ask? No, she's not. She is a skinny, by the way, and I'm not saying she's not fit. She's obviously fit, but a skinny black female gladiator that's in there competing against other highly trained male gladiators that outweigh her, that have vastly more strength, that have vastly more skill, and just kicking the living shit out of them. And we're supposed to just accept this as, oh, perfect fact, makes sense, lock it in, can't wait to watch this show. And if you're wondering if the show in its trailers alone is full of woke DEI dog shit messaging about representation and about women and about color, well, yes, of course it is. So this show is DOA. It's dead on arrival. I don't get why they don't learn. Maybe this has been in, maybe like similar to Ironheart. Maybe it's been in the can for 4 years and I just don't know about it. And now they're like, well, we got to put this thing out, whatever, just do it. Just roll it out. But at some point, you got to just fire everybody, right? You got to clean house. I've been saying this you have to clean house because they don't get it. They're going to continue to lose money. They're going to continue to bleed millions and millions of dollars. They're now going to continue to rein in how many projects they make. So all of us as consumers are getting punished by the fucking horrible decisions these people keep making in Hollywood. These woke assholes keep making in Hollywood, where they keep trying to shove stuff that makes no sense. And by the way, historically, I looked into it. Historically, there were female gladiators for a very short amount of time. They tried to do it for a brief period of time. Everyone hated it. They thought it was disgraceful, and it was quickly ended. At no point in time were female gladiators fighting male gladiators and was it lauded and applauded. This is complete fabricated horse shit for one purpose, and it's to send the message. This reminds me of like that stupid movie, The King, or that awful movie. It's again like what's her name, Olivia something, who's like in all these movies as a star, where they keep shoehorning in like oh, it's a black female action star, and she's she was the president and she's kicking ass, and everybody goes, what are you talking about? No one wants to see this, and nobody did go see it. It was a huge failure. Stop doing this shit. We as consumers now are going to be screwed because they will not have the money to do anything because they keep losing millions of dollars on this shit. And because they don't know how to think any other way, and they can't seem to function without shoehorning in these idiotic concepts and ideas, I don't know where they're going to go. Legitimately. You need to get a full clearing of the executives class. You have to clean out the executives. You have to clean out the managers. You have to clean out the readers of the scripts. You have to clean out everyone and start over here because they're not getting it. And all of us are going to be worse off for it. Okay. Last thing, guys, Collective Shout. So Collective Shout is a feminist organization that puts itself forward as being activists to stop like hypersexualization or dangerous themes in gaming. Now, what they mean by that is games, primarily, they said they started going after games that are like sexual content. So they started targeting a lot of Japanese games, role-playing games where you could have sex with ladies. And, I'll say full war, I've never played one of these, not because I wouldn't, seems kind of interesting, but I've never done it. However, they are very popular. A lot of people play them. A lot of people download them and different outfits. And I'm trying to think of the name of the one. It was like an odd name, like infit.io or something like that. But it's one of the major gaming platforms internationally, similar to a Steam, that hosted these games. And look, you can choose whether or not you want to look for erotic games or not, right? It's like anything. You can choose whether or not you want to subscribe to the Spice Channel, if that even exists anymore on your TV, or, whatever, Skinemax, or download a porno. It's your choice as an individual and consumer. But Collective Shout has been pressuring platforms that host games and sell games to remove this content. And as a game platform, you should tell these people to go fuck off because they are not your audience. They are not buying or purchasing games. They are not gamers. They are activists. And they're a very small portion of activists, especially compared to the millions of gamers that are out there apparently actively wanting to download games that they can masturbate to. Instead of telling these people to go fuck themselves, they have capitulated. And as we know, the first thing you never do is capitulate to an activist because you know that they'll never stop. Their demands will not end there. They will not say, oh, thank you. You've helped our cause. Great. We'll keep it to this very slim, segment of games that maybe they say allows the rape of ladies, virtual rape. Let's say that, or aggressive violence towards women. Okay, let's say that. And if they kept it towards that, maybe the platform could say, okay, done. But they never do. So now what's happening? Oh, that's right. They're going after games that are far more broad in what they stand for. And these activists will say that, well, they're still very harmful because of violence in this way, or because they hypersexualize women, and because they have partial nudity in them, or, you name it, you got it. Whatever it is, they're trying to actively censor artistic and creative leads in games. And look, Grand Theft Auto could be considered, obviously, one of the games that would fall under Collective Shout's purview. The fact that they've now had hundreds of games removed, by the way, and including a game which is actually a game designed to be anti-sexual violence. I think it was called, it's like a horror video game. Again, I've never played it. Fuck, I'm not going to look it up. But it was a horror video game with this, kind of grotesque mummy-faced guy, and he's all kind of beat up. But very popular game. Very popular game. Gone because of Collective Shout. Nothing to do with the hypersexualization or rape of women. Gone. Removed because, now the mission creep of this organization, and because they've got their fucking fangs into these platforms, now they'll demand more and more and more. And if you don't, we're going to make a big stink, and we're going to say that you support violence against women, and we're going to say this, and we're going to say that. When at the very beginning, if they had just said, hey, go fuck yourselves. And also, let's not forget, it doesn't matter. Similar to the Sydney Sweeney American Eagle article, there have been now probably 100 articles written about these morons complaining about the ad. Guess what's still running? The American Eagle Sydney Sweeney ad. Guess what's going to still be popular? American Eagle and Sydney Sweeney. People are going to use it in the broader sense because in a cultural sense, in a consumer sense, these activists represent fucking jack all. And for these platforms, just like all the banks when they kowtowed and now they had to walk themselves back because debanking people over gun purchases was incredibly unpopular, these fucking platforms gotta learn that you cannot give these people an inch. They are not your consumers. They are not what pays your bills. They are not anything to you other than what should be considered a fly to be swatted, a nuisance to be ignored. And if you let them in, it's like that movie, that vampire film, let the right one in. Well, you let the wrong one in. And once they're in your house, they're going to get nestled into every aspect of your business, and they're going to threaten you more and more and more. And you're going to have capture of your intellectuals. You're going to have capture of your executives that are so risk adverse that now that they're in there, they're going to keep kowtowing to them. And the only way that ends is when this company and these platforms see enough users go, hey, go fuck yourselves for listening to these people. And I guarantee you that's what's going to happen. Just like what's happened with movies, which is why movies are slowly turning around. TV seems to still not get it. Just like what's happening with video games at large, with all these companies, Sony and, Bungie going under, and all these companies that are now bankrupt because they kept pushing out woke dog shit nobody wanted to buy. Well, they're going to find out the hard way. And I hope they do. All right, that's it, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe for the Lions of Liberty Network. Again, we've got many, many shows with many, many personages. Myself, John Odermatt, Lou Perez, Brian Nichols, and, of course, the new show, Politics. We'll be doing a Politics on Friday. And Politics has its own feed, by the way, as well. So if you wouldn't mind, just to help us pump it up, you can unsubscribe later, but go subscribe to the Politics feed and give it a 5-star review. I beg of you. It's a new show. It's hard to launch anything new in this day and age because there is a lot of competition out there, and people are lazy and don't give a damn. So thank you. All right. From me, Brian McWilliams, from the Lions of Liberty Network, and from Mean Age Daydream, keep those electric eyes on me, babe, and keep that ray gun peep to my head.